I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of More Than Kurosawa. And this week we're going to be looking at the film Hello, Love, Goodbye by director Cathy Garcia-Sampana, or Cathy Garcia-Molina, just had a recent name change. A bit of a swerve of the types of movies we've been covering. Been doing a lot of kind of 50s, 60s classic movies. This one I want to go back to the present and take a look at a recent movie that I loved in a genre that we haven't covered yet so far. But if you're new to the series, what I do every single week is review a different Asian movie by a different Asian director to help us understand the wide world of Asian cinema, to help us get a full picture that there is more to just Akira Kurosawa or Bong Joon-ho, that there's many great directors, so much so that every single week I'm going to be highlighting a different great Asian director and one of their great movies. I often try to have this movie be a good starting point, so even if you haven't heard of this director, it's a good point to start off and help you understand and get a little bit more of an understanding and a greater picture of the kind of different movements throughout the kind of 100-year plus history of mostly kind of East Asian cinema. That's ultimately the goal of this series. And the way we've been structuring these videos, and we will continue to, is the first half of the video give a discussion about the filmmaker, because we only cover one a week. I want to talk about what makes them interesting, what makes them unique, why they're important to the history of Asian cinema. And in the second half of the video, pick one of their films that I really like and talk about why it's special, why it's a unique movie and best in the genre, how it kind of connects to the directors, flourishes, and give you just another kind of great recommendation. We've been doing this every single week now for a few weeks here, and if you appreciate the video or want to give your thoughts, please do comment below. Let me know if I should cover any other directors or any other types of movies that you'd like to see. I'd love to hear that. But without further ado, let's jump into my discussion of the filmmaker, Cathy Garcia-Molina or Sampana. She just recently changed her last name, so we'll go by Sampana, or just kind of call her Garcia in reference. And the reason why I wanted to cover her is because she's a different type of director that we haven't covered yet so far on this channel. We haven't covered a Filipino director yet, so I definitely wanted to cover, a director from the Philippines. That's a huge country that does some great cinema throughout really a long time now. I also wanted to cover a female director, because if we're painting the full picture of Asian cinema, having that female perspective I think is important, in particular because it's more of a modern development. You don't see a lot of female directors from the 50s and 60s and 70s, and it's more of a kind of a modern viewpoint, but a very valuable viewpoint and a different viewpoint than we've covered in the past, so I thought that was important. And then the third thing is Garcia is, for the most part, a romance director. She is the queen of romance. She's the master of this genre. And we haven't really covered these types of movies before. And I think these types of movies don't always get intense analysis because they're not prestigious or serious or don't have some kind of political allegory underneath them always. That being said, I'm a kind of poptimist, I guess you could say, in the music theory terms, in that I appreciate all different types of films and I want to cover all different types of movies. For as much as I like, a Bong Joon-ho, I also love a Michael Bay and masters of genre. So I want to cover Garcia here because she is definitely a master of the romance genre. That is her specialty. They are these kind of airport novel, romance, paperback genre, in that they're overly sentimental and romantic and very kind of melodramatic with these big emotions. And it's a genre that you either like or don't like. I think some people can easily find it cringy, but as a lover of film, to me, it always kind of depends on the craft, which I think Garcia is an expert in. And then, particularly with these movies, more of a personal preference is, do you connect with the leads? So, I've seen a few of Garcia's movies here. I haven't seen all of them, but the ones that I do like are almost always because of the leads or the ensembles. Like, I like Seven Sundays a lot, or Four Sisters in a Wedding, because of their kind of great ensembles. I love the kind of trilogy that she did with Catherine Bernardo, and She's Dating a Gangster, The House of Us, and the movie we're covering today, Hello, Love, Goodbye, just because I think Bernardo's a great lead, but sometimes some of the other co-stars she's with aren't always the best, but I also think that's kind of the fun part of watching kind of rom-coms or romance movies, like a movie like The Holiday, for example. Some people like Jack Black and the Kate Winslet story, some people like the Cameron Diaz, Jude Law story, and there's kind of fun with rooting for a couple or against a couple, that kind of interactivity that the movie invites, I think, is a lot of fun to these movies, and that's definitely the case here with these films. And if I were to compare her to another Western director, maybe another female director, I would say she's got the kind of storytelling chops and interested in the same stories as like a Nora Ephron, but I do think she has like maybe the visual panache of a Nancy Meyers. I mentioned Nora Ephron just because I think their view on relationships are relatively similar. They kind of have a more pessimistic, acid-penned kind of approach to the hopelessness sometimes of relationships and how difficult they are. That being said, she does have the same visual panache as Nancy Meyers, and that they're both able to light their actors in this beautiful way. But all three women are really experts in relationships and the dynamic between men and women. And on a technical side, Garcia, like I mentioned, like Meyers, really does know how to make their actors look great, which is an under-discussed kind of part of filmmaking. But in these types of movies, when two people you have to believe are falling in love with each other, you have to be in the viewpoint of the characters, and the characters think this is the most beautiful person ever they've ever seen. So as a filmmaker, you also have to make sure that that's clear, that you have to like them really well and make them look the best as possible. This is not a realistic portrayal always of how they look, but it's true to the story because this is how the characters view each other in this kind of glorious, angelic type way. And it's actually less of a traditional romantic comedy kind of a movie in that they don't use a lot of studio lighting because of the lower budgets of this movie. I think Garcia is actually great at using natural light and going outside to kind of light them in a softer way, kind of almost angelic at times. But she is really great at showcasing the beauty of her movie stars. And then also she's really great at manipulating focus. A lot of times the recurring shot in her movies is you'll see two characters in the foreground speaking with one another, having a conversation, but they're completely blurred out. And in the background, we're focusing on a face, thus kind of indicating that we're not interested in the actual conversation going on, that doesn't really matter, but we're interested in how another person is listening to the conversation and what they're feeling. And we'll do that oftentimes where the people in the background are actually just as important as the people in the foreground. And she does do that frequently throughout, kind of manipulating your focus to really focus you on a certain character and their reaction to something or what they're saying at a certain period of time. She's really an expert at that. And then she also likes to play around with the kind of different split screens and text message bubbles. She does have a lot of kind of fun within some of the different technical flourishes that she'll have within her movies. And then on a story side and a thematic side, she's interested in the connection to the international world. That's something you don't see as much in Western cinema. The big kind of U.S. movies are someone moving, say, to another state, and that's like the biggest thing. But with a lot of her movies, a lot of her characters either live not in the Philippines, but there's always some sort of connection to the Philippines. So like in Hello, Love, Goodbye, it's a worker in Hong Kong. In something like Four Sisters in a Wedding, a lot of the sisters work in other countries and are either coming back to the Philippines or going away to support their family. There really is a connection between the Philippines as a home base, but then success is almost going away and going to other places, other foreign places for a better opportunity or to send money back home. And that was something that I picked up on because all the themes that she's interested in come from that story choice. It's a lot of times about maybe the guilt that you have for going away or the pride that you have with your family because you're supporting them from another place and some of the struggles that have, or the loss of identity of being Filipino but then in another country. There is that kind of dynamic there throughout all of her movies, even if they're just romantic movies set in the Philippines. There's even some sort of connection if someone goes away for a couple of years, like in The House of Us, and goes to Italy. There is this connection to the world and all of these different types of countries, and how common it is to kind of go and travel and find yourself in different places. So as a result, the stories do feel more modern. And then the last thing I guess I wanted to mention was she's interested in prologues. Oftentimes her movies will do a little 2-minute prologue telling you where characters will end up, not at the end of the movie, but usually by the middle of the movie. So for the first half, we're interested in seeing how they got to a certain place, and then the second half of the movie seeing where it actually ends, which just keeps it a kind of fun, interesting storytelling technique that she likes, and I think works well for her movies. So really just a fun, super romantic, overly romantic type of a filmmaker, but definitely a master of this genre. But speaking now of the film, of the discussion of the film we're covering today, Hello, Love, Goodbye, it's about a Filipino woman who is working as a domestic helper, or DH, in Hong Kong, and her struggle to keep her job, but also save enough money to give back to her family, and then help them kind of start a better life, and maybe in this case, in Hong Kong or Canada, and the romantic relationship that develops between her and a Filipino Hong Kong citizen. And what I love most about this movie, I think, is its cultural setting. Going into the series, I thought I would be watching a bunch of kind of overly sentimental romantic movies. But in this movie in particular, I was surprised at just this, how much it was interested in, yes, the romance, but also this kind of setting. I knew nothing about these Filipino workers, many of them who kind of have their own community there that work in Hong Kong, but then can only work as kind of these nannies and can't do anything else. And if they get caught doing anything else, they'll be in trouble and potentially get kicked out of the country. And the kind of pressure and dynamics that a lot of these, mostly women, are under. And that was just a fascinating setting that I think helps ground the story and the romance in a realistic place. And I think that's what this movie is so great at, is showing the love life of a busy person. If you think back on other romantic comedies, most of the time the protagonists are rich, or their jobs aren't really a concern. Their main concern and the main drama and tension of the movie is, will they, won't they? It's always the romantic side of things. Usually in romantic comedies, the jobs aren't necessarily an issue. They have a job, they make money, it's fine, and they find some time in a Wednesday at 2 p.m. to go to a baseball game or something like that. And there's never kind of external issues. In other types of romantic movies, the drama, for the most part, is the relationship. But what's fascinating about this movie is the drama is the relationship, but it's also the relationship in context of a busy person's life. Joy, Catherine Bernardo in this movie, is so much more interested in getting enough money for her family, in not losing her job, and she's so stressed about that. She has no worries about kind of the love life. And even with Alden Richards, the male protagonist in the movie, he's interested in his job, yes, and he's interested in her, but he's also got this sick father who he has to take care of, and he's trying to do something on his own, start up his own bar. So I thought that was kind of a very realistic approach to telling this story of romance in the modern age, in which people have jobs and other concerns, and they feel like they don't have time for romance all the time. That isn't their top of mind concern, and yet still they try to find a way to make that possible. No, they're not always the most realistic scenarios. I do think Alden Richards, my one complaint in this movie is that he's just so perfect. He doesn't feel like a real person, good looking and kind and funny and all the stuff. He does feel like a little bit of a good construction, but I still think he is doing what he's being asked for in the movie, that these are still fantastical type of movies in the romance side of it, where everyone's perfect and everyone's lit beautifully and love does find a way, and all that kind of somewhat cheesy, corny stuff, but even still within this movie and a lot of Garcia's movies, you know that they're a little bit cheesy and corny, but they still kind of work you up, and you still feel the emotion at the end of the movie when they're having big speeches or in the rain and crying. You still do feel for them, because in this movie in particular, you understand their difficulties in the case of Joy, of trying to really just keep her job and get through life. So that the stakes do feel a lot higher, in particular for her, because we understand where she's coming from. And I think Catherine Bernardo is really the star of this movie and a lot of Garcia's movies. She's just a total movie star in the way she's able to command the camera. She knows her angles beautifully and feels like a realistic person, and someone who you can really feel deep empathy for because of some of the different acting choices that she uses, oftentimes actually not speaking. And when she has these big, long speeches, that doesn't always work as much as when she's just kind of looking at the camera directly. She's got that kind of it factor, and she was one of the huge standouts for me, and a big reason why I enjoyed this movie. But it's a really fun movie, ultimately. I'm making it sound kind of dark and serious. It's still fun. It's funny. It's very romantic. I think there's a great chemistry between the two leads, which is something you always want. So it's a great melodramatic, swooning romance film with the sensitivity of understanding the love life of a busy person in a fascinating cultural setting that I've never seen before on film, and another prime example that when it comes to Asian cinema, there is more than Kurosawa. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you comment below. Let me know if you've seen any of Cathy Garcia-Sampana or Melina's movies. A lot of them are on Netflix, so they're pretty easy to find and very popular in the Philippines and what have you. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below if you have seen them. Stay tuned to next week, where we're going to be covering another great Asian director. Not going to tell you right now. You're going to have to wait till next week to see what that one is, as we do every week, Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern. But that's about it. Until next time, stay tuned.